Aloha Hawaii, this is Pokalaing Nui and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri on radio station KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. I have a commercial to make. I'm looking for a contribution. Usually I have a camera set up and I have a tripod. And I screw the camera onto the tripod and it sits here and I can at least have another recording of the program. Now the tripod has been quite heavy, so I have left it in the studio and every week I come back and I use a tripod. Well, anyway, the three-legged tripod has walked away. So I'm using a four-legged stool to place the camera upon, and if anyone has seen a three-legged tripod walking out of the studio of KWAI and you have any way of recovering that tripod, please give me a call. I would like to have my tripod back. I don't want an apology. I don't want a confession like the bicycle that was taken from that boy. I would just like my tripod back. Now, I don't know how effective this call for or this whistle out to the tripod is going to be. So I have the other part of the commercial, which is that anyone who has a tripod, one of those that you screw the base onto the camera, and you're not using it or you're willing to donate it to the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation, if you would kindly bring one over to the radio station here at KWAI. We're on the 4th floor of the Chinese Cultural Plaza, and we are right under the, what is that restaurant name? One Key Restaurant. So there's an elevator that will take you up to the 4th floor, and just go in and ask for Barry or ask for Francis, or just say that this is a contribution to POCA's program, or POCA, the Hawaiian National Broadcast Corporation, or whatever it is. I appreciate that. I'm somewhat upset about not having my tripod, so I've been grumbling with Francis, and Francis doesn't know anything. He doesn't live here, he just works here. Anyway, that's a brief commercial. Let's go back to our program, and I'm signaling when we should restart this program. Okay, the last caller has raised a question that I don't know the answer to, and I don't want to take a guess because I don't want to be wrong. Who are the Palestinians? What are their background? The caller also seemed to anchor a question that was asked by a Christian broadcast corporation to Yasser Arafat, who had been the head of the PLO, asking what is the background of the Palestinians, and is it not the case where in the Bible it's already justified that the Jews were to kill off this particular race? So first question is, who are the Palestinians? The second is, should we even dignify a book, a Bible, a Torah, a Quran, any so-called holy instrument that justifies the dissemination, the genocide, the killing off of a race of people? Or should we say, stop at that point? We challenge it. Even if it does say it, we would challenge its validity, its rightfulness. We would, even to the extent some would say, you're challenging God? And the response should be, if that is the case, if that is what your God is saying, yes. Is that what your Christian God is saying? Yes. Desmond Tutu said, actually he said it in the title of his book, God is not a Christian. And yet what you have is you have people who will try to pull the God element to side with your political or economic or racist or whatever views you have, and try to align your God to those views. And the common call is God is on our side. It's part of that whole song back in the Second World War. Do you folks remember as well as I do? What was the song? Something about God is on our side. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. That kind of idiocy that has continued until some wise man, I don't know who it was, certainly not me, who said it's not a question of what side or if what side God is on. It's a question of we having to be on God's side. Okay. So anyone who wants to call, the telephone number here is 524-1080, and maybe you can clarify for me that question that was asked by the last caller. Who are the Palestinians? What is their background? All right. What I had also wanted to talk about was the Nobel Committee and the Nobel, what has now been called War Prize rather than Peace Prize. This is an article that comes from Julie Levesque. It comes out of Global Research. I get the article from Transcend International. It's a media service, and you can get to that media service if you went to transcend.org. She says the Nobel Committee did it again. The essence of its highest award, the Nobel Peace Prize, has been perverted. It's been turned into a propaganda tool, a form of institutionalized revisionism, for which war is upheld as a peaceful endeavor, creeping alongside power struggles called humanitarian interventions in a fantasy tale we call history. Neither Henry Kissinger nor Barack Obama and the European Union, or the EU, deserved a peace prize. How can the EU deserve a peace prize when it's been using its military might in the Middle East and Africa for over a decade? As David Swanson notes, Europe has not, during the past year, which is the requirement, or even during the past several decades, done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations. Ask Libya, ask Syria, check with Afghanistan. See what Iraq thinks. Far from doing the best work to abolish or reduce standing armies, Europe has joined with the United States in developing an armed global force aggressively imposing its will on the world. There were good nominees and potential nominees available, even great ones. Julie continues. The West is so in love with itself that many will imagine this award a success. Surely Europe not going to war with itself is more important than Europe going to war with the rest of the world. Again, taken from Swanson's writings. In addition to waging war with murderous weapons, the EU also uses, quote, economic weaponry directed against civilians, such as the sanctions it imposes on Iran. Unlike the EU, Iran has not invaded or attacked any country, and the reasons justifying the economic sanctions are pure fantasy, according to Korash Ziabadi. And he explains, this union, that's the European Union, has aggressively declared an all-out bloodless war on Iran, affecting millions of innocent civilians in my country who can't understand for what crime they are being targeted and punished in such a belligerent and unfair manner. The European Union began to impose an inclusive oil embargo against Iran since July 1st. As a result of direct pressure and lobbying by the United States, and in an effort aimed at paralyzing Iran's nuclear program, which they claim is not aimed at civilian purposes. and finally breaking the back of Iran's economy and pressuring it into making political concessions. Sensitive medicine and pharmaceutical products, which were previously imported from the foreign countries, cannot find their way to Iran's markets anymore, and thousands of patients badly in need of medicines for such disease as thalassemia, hepatitis, diabetes, different types of cancer, heart diseases, and psychiatric disorders are facing serious problems with finding their medicines. Waging wars does not take place simply by means of bombarding cities or dropping nuclear bombs on other nations. What the European Union has been doing with Iran is the unmistakable representation of an all-out war in which the ordinary citizens are the silent victims. And as if that was not enough, European peacemaking also includes fighting Iran's freedom of speech. As Danny Scheiter reports, quote, European satellite company Eutelsat says it's pulled the plug on several Iranian satellite channels following an order by the European Commission. The odd Nobel laureate is waging a financial war on its own members, as well as the cases of Greece and Spain illustrate. How can you award a peace prize of all things to an entity that systematically supports the economic and social destruction of Greece, imposes extreme hardships on Spaniards and Italians whilst it supports greedy mega bankers, has an undemocratically elected president, that's Herman van Rompuy, and through its NATO war machine continues bombing and destroying Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and is now poised for unilateral attack against Syria and Iran. Indeed, peace should be made of sterner stuff. But in addition to its internal economic warfare and its plea of moral duty to promote war abroad and assert its position on the global chessboard, the EU is not an eligible candidate for a prize, or for this prize. This according to Michael Chosundowski. While the EU's contribution to peace is debatable, the key issue is whether a union of nation-states, which constitute a political, economic, monetary, and fiscal entity, is an eligible candidate for the Peace Prize, in accordance with the mandate of the Norwegian Committee. The Olympic Games are, quote, granted to countries, but the Nobel Peace Prize cannot, under any search of the imagination, be granted to a nation-state, let alone a union of nation-states. Has the Norwegian Nobel Committee become Orwell's worst nightmare, where war is peace? To understand their nonsensical choices over the years and what to expect in the future, one has to wonder who and what does the Nobel Committee represent. Expect anything from Nobel Committee members. They represent wealth, power, privilege, imperial lawlessness, and war, not peace. Perhaps they believe war is peace. They'll have to explain why scoundrels regularly win their highest award. If the Nobel Peace Prize is delusional, the victims of the EU warfare will tell you the horror of war is real. All right. If you would like to comment on this article, the Nobel Peace Prize awarded to the European Union, give me a call at 524-1080. We'll put you on the radio, see what you have to say, and we'll take it from there. If you would like to comment on any of the other matters that we have talked about, call again and we'll put you on. Race, religion, and U.S. politics? Have they been circumventing the underlying issue that has been the primary driver of a determination of how people vote? Have we allowed the use or the practice of plausible deniability, the old case that Richard Nixon has essentially coined or created, in which you circumvent the target, you allow such deniability to work. It's plausible deniability, and in that way escape the charge of being a racist, being a bigot, being this and that. Richard Nixon, again I'm reading in his diary, Nixon's Chief of Staff Bob Haldeman described the operational blueprint for a new electoral landscape built on bigotry. Quote, "You have to face the fact that the whole problem is really the blacks," Nixon told Haldeman. "The key is to devise a system that recognizes that while not appearing to." So it's this whole idea of a wink. Recognizing it but not appearing to, carrying on a conversation with subtext within the conversation to really mean something else when you are using certain words, and so people get away with that kind of use. All right, our telephone number again is 524-1080. Give me a call. We'll put you on the radio, see what you have to say about these matters. In the meantime, another commercial break. Yeah, let me recite. If anybody have an extra, what do you call it? Tripod. Let me know. Bring it over. I could certainly use a tripod because the one that I had seems to have walked away from this studio. Secondly, if you would like to see some of these programs that we have covered over the last 6 months, you can go to YouTube, put in the word, well, first type in YouTube, comma, Poka Lainui, comma, and you'll get a list of various YouTube programs that I have done. And if you take a chance and put in the major subject or title that you would like to see, you may hit the right topic matter, because what I try to do is I try to title the program with a subject that we generally have talked about. Sometimes my titling and your what you're looking for, we may not use the same word, and therefore in the search it may not come out right. But I am putting most of my programs up on YouTube at the present time. I'm cutting it into half-hour sessions, and that's why you hear me say, well, I'm sorry, I got to take a break, goodbye. I mean, terminate your telephone call. But that's a reason for that kind of practice. Okay, and the other thing is on Olelo television, I am having many different programs running at different times. There will be a special on A Second Glance, or on the program A Second Glance, Teach for America, and that will play at 8:30 on the 29th of October, and then at 8:30 p.m. and at 9 o'clock a.m. on the 31st of October. Just in case you had wanted to rehear these programs, it will be repeated again at different times. I'm not going to give you the time because you probably won't remember it anyway. But if you do a search, you'll come up with it. It's on Native or NATV at channel 53.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Tupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, pala anunu me ka paka Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai kaua i o mano Pa'aku me ke one o ka kuhi hewa Aolea e kau i ka pulima Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi Po o hui ai nā ku ai hewa I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka Aole makoa e mina mina I ka pu'u ka